Love Live Hasunosora is the 5th group that the series has established, and compared to all the other groups, it has taken a drastically different approach to how it showcases itself. A big part of Love Live has been the idol aspect, learning who these characters are and growing a connection with them with the media they appear in, either it be anime, music, etc. Hasunosora has done the same, but add one more way in how they advertise their characters, and that's by immersing the viewer to act like the characters in the series are real people in real life. There's always been a bridge between real life and the virtual world, where the idols reside. We've had seiyus represent the characters in real life, and while that still is the case of Hasunosora, there's an extra layer added with the immersion. Everything, from the streams to the videos, are fully live motion captured and act like it's real life. It's just visualized with the anime art style. Streams where they're just walking around and talking for over 10 minutes, that's live motion capture them the entire way through, and that extends to their lives as well. This is part 2 of a 2-part video about Hasunosora, and I go way more into detail on the immersive aspects of Hasunosora that are essential to the series. The entire concept of Hasunosora is built around the real-time immersive aspects, so I heavily do recommend watching part 1 if you haven't already. With that being said though, this video is going to be focusing on the story of Hasunosora and the characters that make the series. Hasunosora's story and cast are heavily affected by the real-time aspect. The story follows us timeline-wise, meaning that as the days go by for us, the days go by for them. The growth of these characters is very different compared to previous groups because of this real-time aspect. They're not limited to a 12-episode anime structure, nor are they limited to a story that is locked behind a ton of needless grinding until it is unlocked for free later on. Just like how you and I naturally grow over the course of a year, so does the cast of Hasunosora, and it's done in a literal way. Over the course of an actual year, we get to grow up these characters in a way that is built up incredibly slowly to fit with our passage of time. I think the best comparison I have to illustrate the major difference between Hasunosora and the other Love Live groups is that Hasunosora is a Persona game, and the other groups are the Persona games in anime form. Persona is allowed to let characters breathe over the course of the game, while in the anime is limited to a much stricter time. Not saying you can't have good character arcs in the anime structure, but this is to show how much space Hasunosora has with its character development. Now, let's get some bullet points down before we actually get into the story and the like. Firstly, I'm only going to be covering the actual story chapters that are in the app. Streams where they're chilling and talking to chat are not going to be included as I do not know Japanese. It does provide more character nuance, but it's not essential to the watch list. In fact, I got through Hasunosora just fine without the streams, and I still consider the story pretty good. I will be including some lives though, as those are connected to the main story. I talked to a ton of people for this video regarding a ton of aspects, and a lot of people point out streams and supplementary material that help show more of the character's depths. It just goes to show that there's a lot more if you're willing to dig deeper, and even though this video isn't going to go into it, it exists, and if you love the characters then learning more about them might be worth it in your eyes. The story chapters are perfectly fine though. It is the one aspect that isn't exactly immersive compared to everything else Hasunosora has to offer. The app describes the story events as an activity record, so it's heavily implied that we're seeing the events as described like a journal in a sense. Secondly, these are my interpretations of the characters. If you differ from my opinion, then more power to you. I had a ton of help on Twitter, including my friends, to help give their thoughts on certain characters in Hasunosora. While everyone's words were extremely helpful and I'll be paraphrasing some of the things they said, it was mainly as a way to help me look at the character from a fresh new pair of eyes. Everyone will be linked in the description as they're all pretty much essential to a lot of the structuring the script, but at the end of the day, these are my personal thoughts and opinions. For my third point, yes, the story presentation isn't perfect. Being real though, if I had to choose between the visual novel style with sprites and this, I'd choose this in a heartbeat. It isn't perfect, but it gets the job done despite being very budgeted. There's only a handful of tracks every episode uses, you can tell when they reuse animations, and backgrounds are usually still images. They really built this series on hopes and dreams, goddamn. Take my word for it though, the writing, story, and acting carry this series incredibly hard, and I really do mean that. If the writing was not good, I will tell you straight up this would probably be the biggest snooze fest I've had in my entire life. For my fourth point, oh my god, I'm so sorry. The story isn't really story focused. The main focus of the entire series has been the characters, and almost every moment is dedicated to the growth of them. How they grow, how they regress, it's all done to further them as characters. It's only at certain points that plot points take focus that use the growth of the characters as a climax to the story. Because of that, I won't be going over an exact plot summary as dude, it's 2 years of consistent content. These episodes are each over an hour with the 104th term being an hour and a half each. I am not doing all that. Or am I? I had a long talk with friends in a poll to decide whether or not I should actually do this. I was debating in my head, and ultimately I came to this conclusion. I've always been a firm believer of if you're passionate enough in something, then that passion will be shared with others. I've seen it with other videos, I've seen it with my videos, I hope the same applies here. I'm going to be extensively focusing on each of the characters and only briefly bringing in plot points if they're important to the character. Along with that, I'm going to be splitting the video into the 103rd term and the 104th term to make it easier to talk about each character's arcs. Psst. The terms represent the school year that they're currently in, with 104 being season 1 essentially, and 104 being season 2. Okay, are we fucking done yet? Let's get started. In the prestigious boarding school of Hasunosora, members of the school idol club bond together to resolve many of their internal struggles, while broadcasting themselves via the school idol connect app. What starts from initially 2 members from what we see, goes to 4, 5, 6, to later 9 members in total, with each of them working together to achieve their goals of participating and winning in the Love Live tournament. But that's far, far away from where we are right now. Our story begins with a newly enrolled student in Hasunosora. Kaho Hinoshita. Kaho's energy exudes immediately from the first lines we get from her. She's talkative, energetic, and projects down to the people around her, including this blue-haired girl. Who is she? She's Sayaka, and she's not relevant right now. Kaho comes from a very protective household. She was hospitalized for a portion of her life along with being homeschooled, and you'd think that'd make her a heavy introvert, but no. She just has 20 times more thoughts to express, and poor Sayaka has to suffer through it. Kaho attended this school in hopes to finally be free from home and blossom, to change something in her life. She was a witness to the blossoming of life around her, but never the subject due to her circumstances. Oh, she saw her friends having fun, seeing the flowers bloom, but she was never someone who got to experience it, and she felt jealous. Essentially, someone who read cookbooks but never was able to cook. Her ideal world soon fractures though when she realized that Hasunosora is a boarding school, and a boarding school has rules. Strict rules. I mean, it's a fucking boarding school. It's enough for Kaho to immediately lose the energetic demeanor with Sayaka being like, bro, you bipolar or something? It's been like one day. After Sayaka suggests that Kaho change her scenery to, find something enjoyable in Hasunosora, Kaho has the brilliant idea to run away from the school. Luckily, the greatest character of all time, Yuka Kawasa the Otter, manages to jump her, leading her to run to a second-year student. Her name? Kozue. She's not relevant right now. Oh wait, she is actually. After getting an understanding of the lack of freedom Kaho feels, Kozue introduces a whole new world to her. School idols. The captivating aura of the performers, the expression of their love and passion in their voice. All of these were aspects Kaho felt she lacked. Kaho's confidence, or lack of confidence, comes from the fact that she doesn't know how to bloom. She's seen people bloom, but when it comes to her, she isn't sure what the exact play is. Her lack of confidence goes to a point that when she's heavily encouraged to join the school idol club by Kozue, she resorts to being the club manager instead because of how much she's able to praise others but herself. After talking about her thoughts of resigning from the school due to it not being what she wanted, Kozue explains to Kaho how she became a school idol, how she went against her family's wishes of her becoming a musician to pursue this passion of singing and dancing. It brings a question to Kaho's mind regarding her place in the school and what blooming actually means. It's finding your true self, but how do you do that? Is blooming one that comes from your environment, or is it one that comes from you yourself? Kaho has been interpreting her growth as being in the right place at the right time, but it's here where she makes a realization that it shouldn't be the environment that allows her to bloom, but Kaho herself. With that being said and done, Kaho finally makes the leap to become a fully fledged school idol, one who won't just bloom herself, but help others gain the ability to choose to bloom as well. Now that we have the establishing intro to the series, I no longer am forced to do a story summary to get my point across, and now we can just talk about the characters. The interesting thing with Kaho is that while she's the start to the series, she isn't exactly the main character per se. Hasunosora is very lenient on who gets focused on. Oftentimes the focus will switch, and it's done very frequently to the point everyone gets a ton of attention. A character may not appear for a single episode, and you're like, okay, that's just one episode. But then you actually see how long an episode is, and oh my god! The length of each of these episodes really push forth how long the series both literally and figuratively are as they go across the span of a year. Despite that though, Kaho still gets a ton of focus, so let's continue with her story. Kaho's school idol journey is one of expression and free will, for being real. She's passionate on a level that is almost infectious towards the rest of the members. It all stems from the theme of blossoming in Kaho's eyes, thriving in any environment. Because of her upbringing, I want to say, it's led to her having very bad insecurities regarding the way she lives her life. She's blooming, but she feels the need to compare her bloom to other people's bloom because of that lack of experience. And one quirk I love about her is that she frequently says the opposite of her actions. In episode 3, she's like, I want to bloom my own way, not like everyone else. And the very next second later, she pushes herself to fulfill Kozue's expectations of her. It's that level of internal comparison that always makes the realization of it all the more fulfilling. It's what makes her push harder and fear that her standards aren't at the level of others' standards, and that not only becomes destructive towards herself, but others around her. At a certain point, she accidentally damages Kozue's ankles because of her recklessness while training. And when she checks up on her, who the hell are you? Anyway, when she checks up on her, it's one of disappointment. Kaho is hard on herself, but she's even harder on herself when others' expectations are put onto her. Imagine being overprotected, unable to do anything, no expectations, nothing, and you're finally able to bloom and be the person you want to be. It's a whole new world with nothing to compare it to. Because of that, you don't know your limits. You don't know what the highest is, so you keep going higher and higher until you pull an Icarus and fall to your death. Kaho serves as a really good character to focus on for the start of the series. She's someone who's inexperienced, so it allows for the easiest growth to be seen visually. Someone who doesn't know their limits, someone who's figuring out how to express their passion. These are aspects that are easy to show progress in. Combine up the energetic attitude and slightly stupid brain, and you got a perfect poster girl for a love life protagonist. The naive protagonist trope is admittedly something that's been done multiple times in the Love Life series, but the thing that saves it in my opinion is the fact that Kaho isn't the main protagonist. Everyone is. It's only at certain key plot points that Kaho's presence takes center place, and it's all because of her aura. Her static traits, and I don't mean that in a bad way, shine the brightest in those key plot points because of how much she can lift others, but that's for later. The naiveness of Kaho's dream of blossoming not just herself but everyone around her brings brings forth unique situations regarding what other people's dreams are. In the series, Dream Believers is the song Hasunosora is most known for. It allowed them to win Love Life in their previous competition, and Kaho connects with one of the lines, in which she interprets it as, "Believe in those who believe in their dreams." It connects very closely with how she interprets blooming, but how do people bloom? Kaho learns throughout the 2 years of being a student on the different ways people can bloom. No one blooms the same, and no one's purpose for blooming is the same as well. For the sake of simplifying Kaho's term of blooming, it's best to connect it to being a school idol. Throughout the Hasunosora story, a character blooming or finding themselves typically results in them joining the school idol club, and it works for a narrative purpose but also a symbolic purpose. All of these characters are school idols, but the reason for them being one is completely different from the others. Kaho's journey of becoming a better version of herself is realizing the different forms of blooming that can occur and what she can do to support it. Sometimes she isn't able to at first, but it's by these mistakes that she slowly learns what she has to do. A comparison Kaho makes is wanting to be the star that forms a constellation with other stars, tightening their bonds together. This not only goes for her peers, but her seniors as well, more specifically, Kozue. Kaho and Kozue's relationship is one of mentorship mixed in with a tinge of hope on Kozue's end. When the school idol club is first mentioned, we only see 2 members, Kozue and Tsuziri. Kozue is very encouraging towards Kaho becoming a school idol member, to the point you question why she's doing all that, but doesn't seem that important right now. The moment Kaho joins the school idol club, her energy is unmatched, to the point that her passion is shown 10 times more than anyone else. A very clear relationship between the two is how they express their passion for school idols. Kaho is a newbie but has the spirit, while Kozue has the experience but is a lot more reserved. She has a very mature vibe that is reflected in their treatment of Kaho, especially in regard to school idol training, but it's clear there's more to her character than she's laying on, not just in front of Kaho, but other characters as well. There's a twinge of jealousy in the way Kozue views Kaho with how she expresses her passion, almost as if she wishes she could be that way, but for one reason or another isn't able to. Kaho's love for Kozue is incredibly abundant, almost to the point that she idolizes Kozue. It's a common thing for Kaho to treat Kozue like a god, even if she discovers her flaws later on in the series. It's also Kaho's passion for blossoming that helps create Kozue's second bloom later on in the series, but that's a story for another time. After fully recovering with Kozue thanks in part to a green-haired frog, Kozue and Kaho form Cerise Bouquet, a subunit within the school idol club. This leaves 2 other current members in the school idol club, Tsuziri and Sayaka. Wait, where have I seen Sayaka's name before? Who is she? She's Sayaka, and she's not relevant right now. Well, now she is! Sayaka joins the school idol club around the same time as Kaho thanks to seeing Tsuziri's performance. Similar to Kaho, she joins Hasunosora and the school idol club as a way to change herself. While Kaho joins the school with no experience whatsoever, Sayaka comes into school with plenty of experience, and wants to leave it all behind. Sayaka comes from a history of competing in ice skating alongside her sister, and a big part of her training comes from precision movements while maintaining the expression of movement. The reason for her ice skating comes from her sister's injury, which caused her to quit as a result. If anyone has seen ice skating, you probably know how beautiful it is from an outsider's view. One of the best parts for me personally is seeing what parts were improvised and what parts have been practiced because of how many variables that go into a performance. It creates the magic of a dancer who's not dancing because she has to, she's dancing because she wants to, and that's something Sayaka lacks. She was often told during her performances that her movement was expressionless, like she was following the instructions step by step with no degree of variability. This was in part because of her sister. She began ice skating because of her, and a large part of her identity came from looking up and attempting to mimic her, leading her to lose what she thought was her independence. Seeing Tsuziri perform showed what Sayaka thought she didn't have: independence and passion within her movement. Sayaka is a very reserved person, a model student who follows the rules to the T. Also, she's a really good cook. From the start of her journey to be a school idol, she wants to shed a new leaf. Her experience being an ice skater puts her already at an advantage compared to most, but she fails to see the brilliance in her own skill set. When you're grown up in an environment that judges every detail in your performance, all it does is make you hard on yourself as you subconsciously try to find nitpicks about yourself. She has a high standard to please whatever someone's expectations are of her, and it gets to a point where she does something not because she wants to, but because it's expected of her. Later on in the series, Sayaka, along with 2 others, are given the test by his green frog. Her name's Sachi. I don't know why I'm playing the suspense up with her. To provide brief context, the members of the school idol club are planning to participate in the Love Life tournament, and Sachi asks Sayaka a question of why does she want to participate in Love Life, to which Sayaka replies, because she's a school idol. Sachi rightfully points out the flaw in that statement, stating that she's only participating in Love Life because she's a school idol, and not because she personally wants to. A school idol is not defined under one purpose, and you'll see later on in the video how everyone comes to their own conclusion on what a school idol's purpose is. This revelation is one that helps build Sayaka's character to be free from the shackles that are expectations that change who she is. In a really nice surprise, Sayaka's character still revolves around expectations, but it switches from the expectations of, say, expectations of an ice skater to expectations for my friends and the ones I love built around who I am. Sayaka has been dealing with expectations from a logical/analytical definition. The expectations of a school idol is to do this and that. The expectations of an ice skater is to do this and that. And with ice skating especially, that really formed her mindset given the competition she partook in which expectations were literally visualized at the grade level. Sayaka's definition of expectations changing can easily be seen in her relationship with Tsuziri, her senior. The relationship initially is based on Sayaka wanting to imitate Tsuziri to create her own passion and movement, but she soon falls into the same pit of wanting to meet Tsuziri's expectations, or what she thought was Tsuziri's Tsuzuri's expectations. Tsuzuri is a very unique character. To show how different she is, let's compare Kaho and Kosue's relationship to Sayaka and Tsuzuri's relationship. Kaho and Kozue is built on mentorship and a clear difference in experience. Kozue is a very mature senior and oftentimes seems to always have the right things to say to Kaho in order to get the answer that she needs. Tsuzuri is not that, but it works for Sayaka's character. Tsuzuri's mentoring to Sayaka is one built purely off of emotion towards her. She may not know the exact words to say, but she does her best to get her feelings across, and it helps Sayaka reform the way she sees expectations when hearing what Tsuzuri thinks of her and her performances. It's thanks to her that Sayaka slowly grows to be herself rather than what she thinks she needs to be. She comes across people due to Tsuzuri that have expectations of her, but it's not because of her skill sets or whatnot, it's the expectations of just being herself, and hopefully that makes sense because I've said expectation too many times now my tongue hurts. Tsuzuri and Sayaka's relationship is really sweet though. With one built heavily on emotion from both sides, they really do showcase the amount of care they have for each other, to the point they rely on each other like a married couple. Together, they create another subunit within the school idol club, Dolchestra. I do think I've been holding it off long enough, so let's finally talk about the two seniors. And this time, we're gonna have to go a bit far into the past with this, starting with Tsuzuri. During her first year, when Tsuzuri was scouted by to be in the school idol club, she didn't really understand what it meant besides a group that did something together. One of Tsuzuri's important traits is her natural talent and how high it pushes her above others. She didn't need to try. Everything she did she was incredibly efficient in, to the point she was in a league of her own, but she wanted to find purpose in it. She was good at all these skills, but for what purpose? It's almost as if she was a puppet or a marionette, someone whose strings allow them to inherit incredible skill but lack the reason for doing so. Tsuzuri is very relaxed. Absent-minded is a better word for it. She consistently seems like she's in her own world, and she has her own form of expressing her feelings and thoughts, which may come off as confusing to others. Even as a viewer, you sometimes just get captivated with the random shit Tsuzuri says because there's generally no secret intention for words, she just says what she thinks, and it puts a level of honesty with her that I really love. Despite all that though, she's alone. Tsuzuri is one of those characters that you feel for constantly because of events that aren't her fault. She's lonely, and it's painted as a reason for joining the school idol club, to be part of a group, a community, but because of she's put into circumstances that slowly isolate her further and further from her dream of not being lonely. It's why Sayaka is important to Tsuzuri for a multitude of reasons. Their trust in each other comes from the fact that they can stand side by side together, making sure Tsuzuri is never alone. Sayaka can keep up with Tsuzuri in every way, both physically and mentally, and it contributes heavily to their relationship, which many interpret as romantical for these reasons. Both of them come with experience that pushes them ahead of others skill-wise, but they don't know if it makes them who they are. Tsuzuri is talented, yet doesn't consider herself a school idol because she doesn't know what it means to individually be one. Is the definition of school idol just being a vibe? She doesn't know, and it frustrates her when she sees others that she considers true school idols. Sayaka is also talented, yet she's lost in the ways of figuring out how to express her talent as passion due to her expectations. These two go together like peas in a pod in the way they both learn to utilize their talent together to understand the goals they want to achieve. Sayaka with expectations, and Tsuzuri with the definition of a school idol. The relationship also shows Tsuzuri's insecurities regarding being alone, and how low self-confidence she has. When Tsuzuri is presented with the idea that she could be left behind by Sayaka, she freaks out and does some crazy shit like joining the open house committee to show that she can keep up with others. Because of Tsuzuri's raw emotions, it creates some of the most heart-wrenching scenes when she confronts her feelings of loneliness and how they've affected her. She's the type of person to not let go of the past, and I won't say she holds grudges, but she won't forget what was done even if she's specifically told to. Her goal of wanting to be a part of a community doesn't just extend to the school idol club. Tsuzuri's environment is one where she is loved for who she is, not for her skills or her status. The market she volunteers for appreciates her presence no matter what. She could just be standing around saying hi, doing absolutely no work whatsoever, and she'd still be praised. In a way, she doesn't have expectations set upon her, so there's no need to feel isolated regarding her skills when she can just be herself, and have people support her for doing so. Her lack of expectations contrasts very well with Sayaka's view of expectations, which help further to balance each other out. Recall back to the Sayaka situation where Tsuzuri felt she could be left behind. She now has expectations that require her to get out of her comfort zone to stay with the one she loves. One of the greatest things about Hasunosora's growth in these characters is how often their goals change within the course of the story. Tsuzuri is okay with being herself as she stays within the status quo of the school idol group, but speed up the clock several months later, and circumstances change that require her to grow from who she was back then. A character's arc is never fully completed. There's always loose threads that plant the seeds for another arc focusing on them later on. Tsuzuri has a few episodes dedicated to her and Sayaka in the beginning, and it's not until almost 8+ hours later and several months in real life passing by that the focus switches back to them. And even then, it's built on events that happen within that time frame. Tsuzuri's core traits are used effectively as a way to showcase the actual growth she has within the series. She's always wanted to be a part of a community, and a part of that comes from her wanting to talk and interact with people. That's something that's consistent with her. She loves forging connections and bonding with people, and as the series goes along, she gets more and more chances to do so as she grows. What makes it compelling is how she isn't good at conversing at first, and even later on in the series, her dialect and form of speech is something unique to her and sometimes causes confusion with what she's saying. Seeing the growth of Tsuzuri as someone who learns that it's not only okay to be yourself, but to evolve what being yourself is captivating to anyone who's going through major growth. No matter what path you may trail on, you'll still be yourself yourself, and people will still love you because of that. But pause the screen for a second. You may have noticed how much I specified in how Tsuziri feels lonely, but you may begin to ask, why? She joined the school idol club, and while she didn't know how to be a school idol, she was still in a community that supported her. Why is it that Sayaka had to be the one to help Tsuziri with her growth? What exactly happened during the first year to isolate Tsuziri? Why is it that despite everything I've been saying, Tsuziri has had another member of the school idol club right next to her this entire time that she for some reason wasn't able to bond with? What happened during the 102nd term of Hasunosora? When Kozue was a child, she would bear witness to the shine that was school idols. While not directly stated, it's heavily implied that this is Miyu's if Hasunosora takes place in real time, which was 2023 when the story started. From that moment forward, she was captivated with becoming a school idol and winning Love Life, and it became her lifelong goal. Every moment of her life was spent preparing to be a school idol. Despite coming from a family of famous musicians, she openly opposed following down that career path to pursue her own passion. While her parents were reluctant, she was able to join Hasunosora to pursue her dreams. During the 102nd term of Hasunosora, Kozue would join the school idol club alongside Tsuziri, and in order to publicly achieve her goal of winning Love Life. Kozue was essentially that one person that does not play with their hyperfixation. The moment she heard Tsuziri join for the vibe and didn't even know what Love Life was, she was like, imagine building up all this knowledge since you were like 6, I too would be egotistical about it. This is not something you have multiple chances for. The moment Kozue enrolled in Hasunosora, her time limit already started. 3 years. 3 years is the amount of time she had to both compete in and win Love Life before she graduated. Because of that, Kozue held everyone, including herself, to a standard that was impossible to achieve. A standard that eventually got someone hurt. After an incident where one of the members got injured and another had to leave for currently unknown reasons, Kozue and Tsuziri were the only ones left to continue the school idol club. Kozue's attempts to preserve the school idol club from falling apart made her desperate, and soon caused her to sabotage her own goals. After receiving word that another school was potentially scouting Tsuziri to join her club, Kozue switches their Love Life performance to focus on Tsuziri, using it as a way to mark Tsuziri as a school idol of Hasunosora, rather than someone for the picking. Tsuziri was more talented than Kozue, and Kozue knew that. If Tsuziri was taken away, the school idol club would lose so much power, and Kozue knew that she couldn't carry it all by herself. So she lied. She deliberately sabotaged Tsuziri in order to ensure that she stayed in Hasunosora, and it worked. But this act would sever the bond between Kozue and Tsuziri so bad to the point they both agreed to never talk about what happened, and this would stay the same until the 103rd term came around. Kozue is a character that is best described as wasn't built for this. Her passion for school idols and love life is tested as she's forced into a mature role to both continue the school idol club and recruit future members. She's a character built on facades, not only to her juniors but her friends as well. She constantly projects the aura of someone who has it all figured out, but in reality she's desperate to ensure that every step and decision she makes is one step closer to her dream. Her entire purpose for being a school idol is to win Love Life. It's been her childhood dream, and it gets to a point the end justifies the means. If she has to lie to keep the dream going, then she'll do it. There's so much pressure put onto her that's a miracle that she's able to act as the leader of the school idol club. It's only at brief periods that her facade sheds that she shows what she truly is. Scared. She's a very stubborn character on the surface. She has trouble expressing her true thoughts and often masks it with a mature attitude. Her strict demeanor doesn't help, as it takes multiple attempts of confrontation for Kozue to finally create some growth. After Sayaka and Kaho force Kozue and Tsuziri to work together to resolve their issues, Kozue is finally able to reveal her true feelings to Tsuziri and no longer lie about anything to her anymore. What I really enjoy about the character of Kozue is how deeply her origins are tied to the Love Life series. She was inspired by the school idols of the past and thus was motivated to be like them. I have a ton of IRL friends that cosplay and are idols themselves, and it stems from their experience watching Love Life, so I see a lot of my friends within Kozue. In any other Love Life series, she would be the protagonist akin to Chika Takami from Aqua, but I like the fact she isn't. She's not perfect and is responsible for a majority of miscommunications that cause heavy barriers between her peers. From planning to hide school idol records to hiding information to ensure her plan succeeds, she's flawed. Despite having such a strong connection to the past as it makes up her main motivations, she consistently tries to hide/bury it. It's the hypocrisy of her character that makes the acceptance of her past all the more rewarding. Also, it makes a good contrast with Tsuziri, who doesn't forget the past. Out of everyone in the entire Hasunosora series, Kozue embodies the themes of love life the most. In a way, she's the easiest for us to understand and insert ourselves into, especially if we ourselves are longtime Love Life fans similar to Kozue. This dream is something Kozue holds on to, and it might as well be our only dream, which may or may not be a detriment later on. But anyways, I think it's time to switch our focus to a character that has not been mentioned at all in this video so far. If anyone here somehow remembers my first Hasunosora video I made, then you probably know the character I'm referring to. In the intermission for episode 6, we are introduced to Rurino, who traveled from Japan to California just to fish. Rurino is a very interesting character, and it comes down to a unique quirk about her, her energy. She compares her social energy to a battery. The more she socializes and does stuff, the more it gets depleted until she becomes a wooden plank. She feels immense guilt for this, as it often ruins the mood, and it's not something she can fight or force it off. No, if the battery's dead, the battery's dead. This has led her to have a very introverted lifestyle, living alone and doing tasks that don't deplete much energy for her. like fishing. Her preservation of her own mental energy along with her care for others has put her in a deadlock, where she chooses to abandon everything for the sake of her comfort zone. She's a normal person besides that, but her battery forms most of her struggles and conflicts as she has to make a choice on how much she wants to push herself. Her battery is never cured, FYI. It's something that remains consistent in the series even a year later. Her growth isn't really growth, it's more so adaptability to the situation. The members of the school idol club create a box for Rurino to go into when her social battery is depleted. And while Rurino and everyone else thinks it's the stupidest fucking idea ever, she actually does use it consistently throughout the series. It's played as a joke initially, but then she just kind of chills there for like multiple parts of the story and it's taken at face value. Like, yeah, she does this. Coming from a personal experience, I really love the simplicity of Rurino's situation. It's not something that can have a grandiose moment where you're like, oh my god, my battery increased, or I don't need my battery anymore. You can't have a character moment like that compared to other characters we talked about. You can't compare it to blooming or learning expectations because it's more external rather than internal like with Rurino. Why the fuck am I saying like that? The only reason Rurino is able to join the school idol club isn't because she overcomes her battery, it's because of her classmates choosing to adapt to her no matter how silly her condition might be presented as. Think of, say, phobias that you probably have or any conditions that require you to be treated differently. I'm allergic to dairy, and having friends that adapt to that without, treating me differently because of that makes me really happy seeing the relationships in Hasunosora. To get into Rurino's main growth as a character though, we have to talk about a certain character that's tied directly into Rurino's motivations to be a school idol. This character is actually someone you've seen before. And when she checks up on her, who the hell are you? This is Megumi, Rurino's childhood friend and an original member of the school idol club alongside Kozue and Tsuziri. After an incident where Megumi was injured, she would quit the school idol club, and even after recovering from said injury, would continue to avoid the school idol club due to the mental damage she suffered. Megumi is a very insecure character, and she hides it with a facade similar to Kozue. Her entire persona is wrapped on a projection where she praises herself constantly. She creates models and phrases that are based around her, and her YouTube channel especially is where it's most present. She calls her fans Megu soldiers and seems to love the attention. One can easily interpret this behavior as having an ego and that's it, but the reason for why Megumi does this is tied to her goals. Megumi wants to captivate the world with her presence, and it started early on with her relationship with Rurino. Megumi was initially a child actress before enrolling in Hasunosora, but the reason for why she became one was to captivate Rurino. She has a need to make sure the view that people have of her is one of awe, even if she has to lie. She actually failed most of her auditions for acting. When she quits the school idol club, she avoids telling Rurino the reason why in order to keep the illusion that everything is okay. Megumi isn't exactly the brightest. Frankly, she's dumb and fails in almost every subject, which is one of the reasons why she was enrolled into Hasunosora. I personally think it's because of those flaws that she pushes so hard in order to maintain a positive view of herself. She's similar to Kozue where both put up a front. It's like she constantly wants reassurance. Her original goal for joining the school idol club was just because she was asked to and it could help her increase her reputation. Similar to Rurino, her flaws make up her character, and it isn't something that gets cured or pushed through. It's more so how her environment adapts to her traits. Despite the time she ego farms on people, she actually is incredibly selfless and tends to do her best to mend the issues, even if it becomes incredibly irrational. Megumi, after figuring out she was wrong, decides to leave the school to go to California. That's how much she overreacts. When she suffers her injury, she chooses to leave the school idol club to not allow the other members to suffer for a mistake, even though the other members were perfectly fine with helping her out. While inconsistent, it's clear she cares for others to the extreme. She's unintentionally nice a lot of times. When she first meets Tsuziri, she only becomes friends with her because she was bored, but Tsuziri was like, oh my god, someone's actually listening to me. And Megumi was like, you know what, you're actually kinda cool. These traits / flaws are never painted as something that needs to be changed despite the conflict they occasionally causes. Her mindset of overreacting is something that's consistent throughout the series, and I really mean it. It happens in the entire 2 years that we know this character. On one hand, you could completely call this redundant and repetitive, but on the other hand, I feel it paints the real life aspect of Hasunosora even more. The core flaws of these characters are consistent no matter how much they impact the series. It's only with certain traits that get overcome, like with her knee injury. This is where Rurino steps back into the spotlight, as she's the one to bring Megumi back to the school idol club, to support her through both her faults and her really big faults. When Rurino officially joins the club, it's because of how much Megumi told her about them and how amazing they are. Although she becomes a school idol for herself after interacting with the club, one of her first goals is getting Megumi back. When she discovers the real reason for why Megumi quit, her entire desire and goal for being a school idol is to be one with Megumi. It's a unique case where without one of them, the other wouldn't be a school idol. Without Megumi, Rurino wouldn't have become one, and without Rurino, Megumi wouldn't have become a school idol to captivate everyone's hearts. It's because of the two of them being together that they're able to push each other forward and begin their goal of captivating the world, creating the last subunit within the school idol club, Mirakuda Park. And this is where Hasunosora's story really shines with its character growth. For Rurino, she wants to be a school idol with Megumi. She's content with her being her purpose, and for a while, this is shown to be something that's okay. Before Megumi and Rurino become school idols together, Megumi warns Rurino that she shouldn't be a school idol just for her sake, but when they come together, they share a goal of captivating the world, so it initially doesn't seem too bad. But the thing is, their methods of captivating the world begin to separate as time goes by. Rurino represents the real-time growth of Hasunosora as her motivations begin to become more independent from Megumi. At a certain point, Rurino begins questioning that while she does enjoy being a school idol with Megumi, she feels that she's been using it as an excuse to not think about why she's a school idol for her own reasons. After being surrounded with an environment of other school idols that had their own purpose and reason for being there, Rurino felt like she didn't deserve to be a school idol because of her purpose being for someone rather than for herself. This leads to an episode dedicated to Rurino discovering her own personal reason for being a school idol separate from Megumi. Despite both wanting to captivate the world, Rurino wants to captivate people in a way that will allow everyone to have fun. Rurino, coming from a very introverted life due to her condition, knows how it feels to not have the same amount of fun as everyone else due to their circumstances. What I like about this growth is that it slowly builds up in real time. From the start of Megumi and Rurino joining the school idol group to Rurino discovering her own purpose for being a school idol, that goes from August 2023 to February 2024. That is a large amount of time, and there's no time skipped or anything, so time is naturally given for those characters to think about why they do what they do without feeling rushed. I like the consistency of Megumi's character when she's presented with Rurino wanting to be more independent, as it completely shatters her confidence, and she overreacts by attempting to dip to California. Like I said, a lot of these characters do not change, and I mean that in a good way. Now that is a summary of all the characters that we've established so far. Was it good? Was it bad? Who knows? I was just yapping about these characters because I love a ton of aspects about them. But now that you hopefully understand most of these characters, I can now dive into the relationships they have between each other, as the growth between them is something that's so satisfying to watch. And it's something you'll experience as well if you watch the series. Having characters grow closer to each other is not anything new, and I want to stress that. A ton of the character growth isn't groundbreaking, but it's just the time spent with the growth is a lot more than it usually takes. We all know growth takes a while, and Hasunosora does its best to really illustrate that growth in a real-time format. Rurino dedicating being a school idol for Megumi made me raise an eyebrow initially, since everyone else had a more individual reason for joining. So when a couple months pass and Rurino breaks out of that mindset, it really clicked with me given the amount of time it took for it to happen. This type of growth is seen in live service games as well. Project Sekai, D4DJ, like I said, it's not anything new. It just really takes its time compared to everything else, and surprisingly not much of anything that could be considered filler is in there. It should be noted that there is a game, like there are some rhythm aspects, but they're not essential to the experience of Hasunosora. Anyway, what I love most about Hasunosora are the relationships between each of the seniors and juniors. As the newbies, the juniors really go above and beyond in bonding to not only learn more about each other, but force the seniors to bond together as well. The dynamic between the three, Kaho, Sayaka, and Rurino, is one that is interesting to watch as they go through a world that has been affected immensely by the events of the previous year. For a majority of the first year, it's like they're Scooby-Doo trying not to only piece together what happened, but to fix what happened as well. Characters like Sachi directly impede on their path because of the past, and it creates a really intriguing premise that carries the series for a while. Kaho and Sayaka going on a discovery hunt to find out what happened and deliberately pushing the seniors to resolve the issues is not only a cool plot moment, but also shows the kind of relationships that can forge due to their school idol club. I can suspect the first years are like, yeah, let's make a vow to never be like them. Despite the major differences they had between them, with one being an extrovert, one being somewhat of an introvert, and one that has to hide in the box after using so much energy, they all get along incredibly well. And to really illustrate how important that is, it's best to contrast with the second years and their relationship with each other. If you've watched this video this far in, you already know that the 102nd year wasn't exactly the best for the school idol club. Things were rough, tensions were high, no one really had a defined goal of what they were here for, and it was kind of a clusterfuck that resulted in the entire event being wrapped up in black ink. It created a sort of trauma bond between the second years and anyone else who was involved in the situation. It's comparable to the third years in Sunshine, but I think what makes Hasunosora more intriguing is the fact they choose to continue on. It's not a situation where they all decide to go their own separate paths after the event. The school idol club still continues even after the incident, but because of the already existing problems that exist between them, it only caused further damage. It began to feel like they were only together because of their goals for school idols, and not because they genuinely enjoyed being together. When the second years are finally reunited, there's a sense of nostalgia and growth you can see from them. They still have the flaws that caused the incident to happen, but they've grown enough to be able to confront and work together on it rather than each of them dealing with it in their own way. The intermission in episode 12 is probably the best episode regarding the relationship after the 102nd term. They all finally get to talk to each other freely about the events that caused them to separate from each other, with no instance of dodging the subject. They recount the promise they made in the piece of paper to separate from each other, they're finally able to goof around with each other. It feels like a reward for the journey that we watched so far. Despite their maturity, they still do have a fun side to all of them, and it's the moments where they're not around their juniors that they act almost exactly like them. You can tell that they've all known each other for a very long time, to the point they accept each other, flaws and all. They take the piece of paper they made their promise on and transform it into a star, choosing to reforge the past rather than hide it. With everyone finally united, Kozue reveals to everyone that Love Life has officially started, starring a major arc in Hasunosora. Now, the events of Love Life aren't one I'm really interested in recapping because what do you want me to say? They performed. It was cool. Like I said, this isn't necessarily a story recap, it's just a video of me talking about why I love the characters. But in order to do so, I need to elaborate on certain plot points in order to showcase it. If there's any plot points I didn't mention, it's mostly because it doesn't really fit into my video, and I'm trying to keep this video short. I know you're looking at the link and saying really, but please believe me. And if you want to know everything that happens in the story, then just go watch the series yourself. It's really good, I promise. But what I want to focus on is the aftermath of the Love Life tournament, and this is major spoilers for what happens in the 103rd term, so if you've been watching this far without wanting spoilers, then no. Why? After passing through the Love Life regionals, they had finally made it to the finals, where after they performed, the results came in, and they failed. What comes from this is a character study of everyone we've been with so far. All the characters have been introduced, their arcs and purpose for being a school idol have been defined, but it's here where that purpose is challenged. After participating in Love Life and knowing how it felt competing and being with other school idols, we get to see their reaction to loss and how it affects them. For characters like Rurino, she questions her purpose for being one besides having fun with Megumi, which causes her to have her own focus episode later on when she tries to find that reason. Tsuziri feels disappointment for not being able to show the world why Hasunosora is the best, as she loves the school and the community it's driven by. Megumi gets pissed off at failing her goal of captivating the world. Kaho has to deal with the fact that her act of blooming wasn't enough, and Sayaka is the only one that's not heavily affected by loss. She's the only one that has the frequent experience of failure. I mean, she enrolled into Hasunosora because of the fact her ice game performances weren't doing well, so it makes sense for her to be the most well-equipped one to deal with failure. While everyone gets their own section dedicated to how they reacted to the loss, Sayaka's is the only one that doesn't get the most focus because it's like, yeah, I lost. It's a thing that happens, then dips. I don't know, something about that just fucks with me. The one who undoubtedly takes the biggest hit from the loss though is Kozue, who initially doesn't react much to the loss, opting to check on everyone else before herself. But the moment she is alone, she immediately breaks down. This is someone whose lifelong goal was to win Love Life. From the moment she was a child, she was captivated by this dream. She was egotistical, she was energetic, and it was all because of that dream. The first time they participated in Love Life, that shit did not count. There were too many problems and issues that were caused by both ends, including herself. But this time, there were no issues, no conflicts. Everyone did their best, and there were no faults that they could easily see. Nothing they could beat their head over for missing. But nonetheless, it was just somebody they had to accept. Maybe another time, but it hurts more for Kozue. This is her second out of 3 attempts to win Love Life, and she's down to one last attempt. And who's to say the relationship between everyone and Hasunosora will stay the same? What if it breaks down again like the first year? In one of my favorite scenes, Kaho reassures Kozue that they will achieve her dream of winning Love Life, that she will blossom with Kozue, and that everything will be alright. It's one of the cases where Kaho's stacked character shines the most. In situations where change can be most prevalent, it's the characters who stay the same that are able to be the guiding light for those that have hesitated in their goals. With everyone united and firmly set on their new goals, they all vow to achieve their dreams, and from there, the story continues. In any other series, this would mark the end of Season 1, but since this series runs in real time and we're not in March yet, which is when the school year ends, we still got stories to tell. And stories to tell are right, as there's one more plot point I want to focus on before the 103rd term ends and the 104th term comes rolling around the corner. Anyone who's been paying attention in this video may have noticed a character I've only mentioned a couple of times, but never elaborated on the importance of their presence. In hindsight, their contributions on the surface seem less than any of the other characters we talked about so far, as it takes until the 12th episode out of 18 for them to start getting any meaningful attention. As the cherry blossoms begin to spur, a certain green frog begins to reflect on her 3 years as a Hasunosora student, and her journey as a school idol. As the granddaughter of the school's chairman, Sachi grew into a fixed position where she wasn't granted much leeway into whatever choices she wanted to make. But when she became a school idol during the 101st term of Hasunosora, she discovered what true freedom was. Indebted to them, she established a goal of retaining their legacy, to pass down what was given to her, freedom and choice to be the person we want to be. But as the only member of the school idol club during the 102nd term, because I guess everyone graduated, she was pressured into making sure she could preserve the past, spread it to the new generation. Sachi went searching and came across a girl who wanted to do things together as a group, a girl who wanted to captivate the world, and a girl whose lifelong dream was to be one and win Love Life. This lineup, however, was shit. I low-key feel bad for Sachi because if I was in this situation, I realized how genuinely cooked I am. Watching the first time they all interact with each other is the most funniest shit ever because Sachi knows deep down, yeah, this is fucked, but she does her best either way. Sachi would do her best to individually help each of the school idol members to be a better version of themselves, to guide them through life as her seniors did for her. But then something happened. As Hasunosora is a boarding school, there's been one topic of discussion that has been brought up: the use of the internet. While the internet can provide knowledge and resources that can prove more helpful than schools, the use of the internet can also halt teaching, encourage distractions, and in a location like Hasunosora, which is designed specifically for education, the higher-ups have always planned to ban or at least limit the use of it. For the School Idol Club, the use of School Idol Connect is one of the only ways to advertise and stream themselves to their fan base, so if that connection was severed, then well, we wouldn't be watching this series now, would we? In a last-ditch effort, Sachi would choose to leave her juniors behind to become student council president, as her position would allow her to object to any internet bans that would compromise the School Idol Club. This, however, would force her to abandon her juniors, as being student council president forbids her from being part of any club. Combined with her son's disappearance and the incident that occurred with Megumi and later Tsuziri and Kozue, Sachi was left in a position where she wasn't able to directly help the situation, nor be able to tell them. To save the School Idol Club, she had to abandon all her ties to it, entrusting the future of it to her juniors, and throughout the series, we see how she struggles with wondering if the decision she made was the right one. Her departure isn't something that gets shrugged off, as Tsuziri takes it personally given how she interpreted Sachi leaving them, rather than Sachi making a sacrifice for the club. Tsuzuri's reaction has always hurt my heartstrings because of her feelings towards Sachi. This is the person who helped her find her place, to not only find a community, but be a part of it. If they suddenly leave with no explanation, it's only expected you're gonna resent them despite the affection you feel for them. Sachi's decision is one that created impacts that no one will notice, so she had to bear the toll of it to ensure the future generations of school idols. Despite the pressure she endures, she still has a very devilish personality that she uses throughout the series. I blame it on her height. Being 4'8" does that to you. When she tests Sayaka on her purpose for joining Love Life, that's not because she purposely wants to stop her from participating in it. She wants to ensure that the future generations of school idols are in it for the right reasons and not because they're told to. Here's the thing about Sachi. Some of you may be wondering why I'm talking about Sachi now if her impacts began before the series even started. Despite having a presence in the beginning, Sachi does not get any major attention until over halfway into the series with episode 12 out of 18. And even then, her focus is not on par to any of the other characters in the series, and it's not until her final episode, episode 18, when a lot of core details about her character is revealed. How her seniors passed school idols down to her and how she felt pressured to do the same. All of that is put in the final episode right before she graduates, and usually I'd be pretty pissed at that. Shoving all that content into one episode just spells trouble. For any other character, it'd just be making me ask, why should I care about this character if they're only now getting attention? Where was she before? But then I realized that's the point. Sachi wasn't there. Sachi wasn't there when Tsuziri and Kozue had a falling out. Sachi wasn't there to help recruit Kaho and Sayaka. Sachi wasn't there to help Kozue and Tsuziri reconcile. Sachi wasn't there to help recruit Rurino. Sachi wasn't there to bring Megumi back or help the second years bond together. Sachi wasn't there. Sachi's entire character is wondering if she was a good senior. Was she someone who was able to pass down the love she was given down to her juniors? She doubts herself constantly if she was able to do it well. And for us, the viewer, we understand why she thinks that. She was never there. When we see Kozue or Tsuziri or Megumi interact with their juniors, it's evident how close they are and how much they trust each other. We don't get to see an instance of that with Sachi until we get direct flashbacks to it in the final episode. When Sachi revisits the school idol club to see it one last time, she sees what she wasn't able to do, to be the perfect mentor to her juniors. Everyone is so tightly knit in a way that was impossible to see when she was in the school idol club. She's no doubt happy knowing that her sacrifice wasn't in vain and the school idol club can continue, but thoughts linger in her head. The fact they're also close now shows that she was a bad senior, doesn't it? She failed her juniors by abandoning them, and even though it was for the greater good, can she really say she passed down what was given to her? Episode 18 is a really amazing episode as it fully concludes the arc of what happened in the 102nd term. All of the second years come together to be reminded of what Sachi meant to them and put it in a song just for her. To tell her that she was a good senior, that she was able to pass down what was given to her, that no matter what she thinks, she was a good mentor. The best way to describe Sachi is as an unsung hero. The type of hero whose accomplishments aren't immediately present on the surface. Without Sachi, the school idol club would possibly cease to exist and the events that we know of Hasunosora would be gone. But her decision came at a cost, where Sachi had to watch from the outskirts to see the impacts of her actions, forced to abandon what she wanted in comparison to what she needed, or what they needed. As Sachi finally graduates, she's able to leave with a smile, knowing that she was in fact a good mentor, a good senior, and most of all, a good person. All of the conflicts and tension that was built for over a year was able to be unwrapped, and it leads to an ending where everyone is able to leave peacefully. The song that's composed by the second years for Sachi is one filled with a ton of thank yous. I can't play it because copyright would eat me alive, but trust that's really good. And that's the end of the 103rd term, which happened in March of 2024. Now, unfortunately, we still have another term to talk about. Wait, we do? Wait, there's no you have to talk about? What the fuck? No! Okay, so, how do I do this? Okay, since this is real life, I guess time just keeps going because there's a whole nother term that happens after Sachi's graduation. And to really seal the deal in the whole immersion aspect, we have new students who soon become new school idol members. Meet your new members, Ginko, Kosuzu, and Hime. If you're wondering why I'm just saying their names with no fanfare, it's because they're all introduced in the first episode. Now, to provide a bit of context, near the end of March 2024, news would come out regarding the new members that would be appearing in the next school term. This was to be expected since adding new members has been a regular thing since Nijigasaki, and especially Leila, who add new members every school year, so it wasn't anything new. The interesting thing regarding these added characters is that they've technically already been established early in the timeline. I'll get more into it soon, but some of these characters have been around under our notice since at least November 2023, months before they were announced. One thing I will complain about in terms of story length is that all these new characters are shoved into the first episode of the new term, or season. Because of this, the episode is over 2 hours long! Oh my god! Somebody save me! Okay, we're done complaining. As the new school term starts, everyone is eager for potentially new members to join the school idol club. Kaho, who is the most excited due to the fact that she's now a senior, goes looking for new members, to which she finds someone laying on the ground of the school idol club. This is Ginko, and she's our first new member of the 104th term. She's actually a character that we have seen before. In November 2023, a story event occurred in which an open campus event was held for Hasunosora, bringing in potentially new students. In a card that was released during this time, it shows Kozue talking to potentially new students, and if we take a close look, Yep, that's her. There's an interesting reason for why Ginko is the first member we get introduced to, and it comes down to tradition. One of my friends Raph pointed this out, but Ginko represents a portion of us, the fans, when the new students were announced. Ginko is a very reserved person. She's the type of person to always straighten her back, upright position, and someone who'd definitely be sexist if she was a boy. Who said that? Ginko is a traditionalist. Coming from an environment where she was raised around her grandparents and other old people, she has immense respect for the past and the culture it cultivated. When she arrives at Hasunosora, it's not to join the school idol club, it's to join the performing arts club, as her grandmother used to be a part of it 50 years ago. When she figures out that it was changed from the performing arts club to the school idol club, she immediately intends to dip out, but only stays to see how much of the past truly remains. Ginko's funny as fuck, FYI. Because of her uptight nature and how she grew up, she isn't really able to vibe like everyone else does. This is the first time she's around people her age, so her behavior comes off as, how do I make myself seem normal? I love that she's one of the few to actually be fed up with Kaho's shit. Her optimism and energetic nature is something almost everyone vibes with, but Ginko's the only one where she does not know how to respond to her. Their dynamic is interesting, as Ginko acts way more mature than Kaho despite being her junior, and it creates a funny relationship between the two and how they interact. Ginko's journey and growth comes from learning to accept the past for what it is. She constantly searches for traces of the past within her school, feeling that it's her destiny to pass down what was given to her. When she discovers almost nothing from the past remains, a part of her understandably feels pissed off. She expected everything to be the same, as if nothing was touched in the 50 years that had passed by. Songs that were composed over 50 years ago seem to be completely gone, almost as if it was erased. Ginko's mindset begins to change, however, when she discovers that the songs she remembered from her grandmother still do exist, but they've been changed. Slowly, after every year and decade, the lyrics and melody of the songs that Ginko once remembered had changed ever so slightly to the point they become unrecognizable, but the song and memories attached with the song are still there. As the song got passed down from generation to generation, they each put their own version of the present into the song before passing it down to the future generations. It wasn't just the spirit of the past that was in the songs, but the spirit of every generation that came after. Ginko learning that the past can evolve and that change is inevitable is the first step for her to grow. All she knew was the past. It helped shape her, and she used it as a starting guide to how to live her life. So when she gets hit with this bombshell, she understandably doesn't know what to do, having to face the present with no plan. And while she's still hesitant, she chooses to be a school idol as a way for herself to preserve the traditions that was passed down to her. Going back to my friend Raph, he made a really good point comparing Ginko's beliefs on tradition and us as fans. A lot of people were understandably opposed to new members, and it wasn't just because of the add number. The current songs they used to sing had to be adjusted to fit the new members, and some songs would have slightly different melodies that would change it from the original. It's a really good representation of how the past is always changing and how it's okay to accept that. Throughout the series, she still retains this mindset of keeping tradition as she does her best to ensure the past can still be kept the same. But as the series goes along, she realizes that can't always be the case. Ginko learns how to evolve the past using the present. It's not just about passing down tradition, but ensuring that you're also a part of it, to pass down not only the past, but also a core part of you to the future. Think of family recipes and how those constantly evolve due to the family members it's passed down to. I come from a Vietnamese family, so the recipes my parents were taught are often passed down to them, but my parents add their own flair to it so that it not only encapsulates their ancestors' presence, but also their presence as well. I want to take a second to talk about Aang from The Last Airbender because I think Ginko's character is similar to him in a lot of ways. As the last remaining air nomad, Aang is extremely pressured with maintaining the tradition of the air nomads and preserving their legacy. He's forced to give up relics in his past in order to ensure the survival of himself and the ones he loves. When he comes across the people who have occupied air nomad temples and altered many aspects of it, he's initially upset seeing the past he once knew be ruined in a sense. But he soon comes to learn that the aspects that made his people the air nomads weren't the temples or the physical artifacts, it was the spirit and beliefs that made them who they are. Seeing the new people still retain the beliefs and core values of what made the air nomads who they are, allows Aang to rest easy knowing that the legacy of his people will be passed down, even if it isn't the way they initially wanted. Okay, so after rewatching the episode fully, this is a really bad comparison. Like, the message is there, but the execution is actually awful in the actual series. Like, okay, I hope you guys understand what I'm trying to say though, and not, fuck, goddammit. A similar case can be made for Ginko, learning that the past wasn't just the old songs or the old outfits, but the spirit and values that were put into them. It's what makes Ginko's development really satisfying to see, as she slowly develops her view on what the past truly means, and what actually represents the past besides physical objects and the like. That's just her character though. We have more to get into, so let's move on. Kosuzu is a pretty simple character on the surface. She's someone who fails a lot, knows she fails a lot, but will continue despite failing a lot. Her introduction scene perfectly describes what I'm talking about. Suzu is one of the more static characters, I want to say, something comparable to Kaho. A lot of Suzu's character revolves around her self-deprecating mindset regarding every action she does, but it's the fact she continues despite that makes her an engaging character to follow. When failure is inevitable, Suzu is the one who will bounce back the most because she always fails. She doesn't have much natural talent, so her growth comes from her sheer determination to keep on going. As her character stays relatively the same, the most interesting aspects come from her relationships with other characters, with her most intriguing one being Sayaka. Sayaka and Suzu have a lot in common. They're both hard workers who come from an experience of a ton of failure. Sayaka sees a lot of herself in Suzu and admires her determination throughout the series. In fact, the relationship highlights a really cool aspect I enjoy about Hasunosora, and it's about character growth. Characters do not grow the exact same, and that's a no shit Sherlock moment, but it's most noticeable in Sayaka and Suzu's relationship. Sayaka came from an upbringing where she wasn't able to be herself due to trying to be someone she wasn't, referring to her sister. When she mentors Suzu, she makes the mistake of putting Suzu into a situation where she tries being like Sayaka, which would soon create another cycle where Suzu would be unable to be herself. Now, this makes sense for Sayaka's character. She spent a long time trying to find her own path and wants Suzu to do the same. But Suzu isn't Sayaka. Suzu isn't the type of person who will lose their individuality with chasing someone. In fact, it might just make her more unique with how she goes about things. It's one of the cases where similar events can cause people to go on completely different separate paths, and Sayaka realizing that is a sweet way for her character to grow. Like Kaho, her character being static in a way and just being someone who keeps going despite everything is something that can spread to the rest of the cast. Her episode where she does her best to encourage her friend to continue movie production is something I really enjoyed. It's a case where her passion is so strong it inspires everyone else to join in, to the point some may push themselves harder than Suzu, like Sayaka, who does her all for Kosuzu's goals. Also, Kosuzu's just fucking adorable. She constantly refers to herself for her last name. She screams Chesto at literally any occurrence and is probably the most naive character you could ever meet. You could not trust her with any secret because she'd accidentally spill it out without you even need to ask. That's how sweet she is. Her role in Dalchestra is also really adorable. A lot of people see her as the daughter of Sayaka and Tsuziri, and having that mindset makes a ton of their interactions quite possibly the funniest shit imaginable. I know I haven't delved too deep into the subunit relationships, and that's mostly because, man, I'm tired. Just watch the series yourself, but I have to show Dalchestra because they have the funniest dynamic. Now, for the character that you've all been waiting for. A character that represents all of us. That's right, you, the viewer. All of Love Life's futile attempts to gain empathy from us come together to form the greatest character in the entire Love Life series, Hime, the gamer. Now, like Ginko, she actually was in the series before her official reveal. Some Hasunosora fans were able to track down comments she made on actual real-life Hasunosora streams, as she was a fan of Hasunosora and lore before becoming a member herself. That's some ARG levels of foreshadowing which I really appreciate, and again, this was months before her character was even revealed, so no one really knew this was her until it happened. Hime is interesting. She's a gamer. She does esports, she makes video game references at every moment, she compares every instance of her life to video games, she has a gaming chair and a gaming headset. She says thank you for the carry. It's disgusting. I love it. I remember watching her focus story and how she discussed how she got into games, and it was so fucking funny. I had to send it to my friend. Her backstory is that she got a gaming PC. That was the funniest shit I've ever heard in my entire life. She is pretty relaxed, all things considered, but the moment school idols or video games pop up, she goes into gamer mode, I like to say. She's insane. She says ooh ah, and has the scariest eyes I've ever seen in the entire franchise. I was low-key debating whether or not I want to take her character seriously because she's a gamer, like the jokes write themselves, but she does actually have a lot of character traits that I personally resonate with. Her passion as a gamer and a fan of Miyaku the Park introduces a lot of unique ideas that are especially Hime as a character. Firstly, she needs to discover that she is in fact a member and no longer a fan, and that creates an interesting problem where she needs to view her members not just as idols, but also her peers that she can trust. Her whole gaming aspect is played completely straight, FYI. I'm cringing, but no one else is, and so the story actually uses it to tell interesting stories of her character. Since she's so passionate into gaming, it eventually causes conflict with her activities as a school idol, leading her to say Valorant callouts during a school idol performance, which is probably the funniest shit I've seen in this video so far. She begins overlapping her gaming world with her school idol world, and she has to realize why she's so invested in both, leading her to come to the conclusion that what she wants is something everyone can enjoy, no matter how far or near you are. It's why she's so invested into the gaming world. Her parents were gone, and her sister, as a way to help Hime get through it, gives her a gaming PC for her to connect with others. It creates a strong starting point for Hime to want everyone to be at their highest, and it's for this reason that she is unfortunately the realest character in the series. Listen, I am a gamer. Gaming is in my blood, in my DNA, so to have Hime here to represent the gamers is something I am incredibly down for. There is a character moment where Hime reveals that because of gaming, she sometimes took things too seriously, and it made her wonder if her passion and determination was something wrong to have. Because of her actions, her gaming groups would often disband because of Hime's constant critiques, and it caused Hime to hide pointing out everyone's flaws in an attempt to keep everyone happy. Gamers! Does that seem familiar in the slightest? Calling out your teammates for doing some stupid shit that they should be called out for, and then getting told that's not that serious, even though this is my rank up game, you fucking Hime is the rep we need. I'm gonna get personal, but there was a time I genuinely took games too seriously. I will not elaborate on it because I'm embarrassed about this and only a few people know about this, but there was a Minecraft game I took so damn seriously. I would call out people for not doing the right thing. I would frequently critique if someone's movement was bad because I want us to win. It turned me into a monster. And like Hime, it made me question if I was taking things too seriously. Now was I? The answer is yes, no doubt. But hearing those words from Hime's mouth made me realize how real of a character she was, and because of that, I cannot hate her in any way possible. Are we done with the characters? Okay, let's move on. As the first years move on to becoming second years, one of the most interesting ways we can see the group grow is how they become seniors to the new freshmen. There's no conflicts or grudges like it was beforehand, so they can all communicate to each other freely, and it creates a very relaxing environment. They have bigger responsibilities now. It isn't just being a better version for themselves, but being a better version for their juniors, the ones who will look up to them. I don't want to be mean to Kaho, but she's the one who isn't exactly the best at being a senior. This is in one part because of how Ginko is, but it's almost sad how it doesn't seem like she's a senior in the slightest. It can change though, she has another year. And despite that, the fact her character still has the passion and energy that was present in her within the start allows her to still have the most intimate moments with her peers, even Ginko when it really matters. I already mentioned Sayaka earlier, but she's growing more and more into a figure similar to Kozue. It's highlighted very early on how she and Kozue are similar, and it's only more present when she has a junior. Out of everyone, she's the one that seems most like a senior, and that's no offense to Rurino, but I'll get to her later. Sayaka in the 104th term is probably the most mature character next to Kozue, and she gets some genuinely really good moments when she needs to be serious. She's not only a mentor to her subunit, but to other members as well. Rurino is probably the one who has the easiest amount of growth to visually see. As she discovers what having a junior is like, she slowly becomes much more extroverted in order to do her best for them. She really does go above and beyond, setting up meetings and doing anything she can to help Hime with her goals. It's such a stark contrast to how she was in the beginning of the series, and it just shows how much she's evolved from the introvert she was back then. There's a small arc regarding how Rurino treats Hime because of the subunit they're in. When the school year starts, she's hesitant to let any new members in because it's just her and Megumi, and that's okay. When Hime joins in, Rurino doesn't treat Hime as a member but only a junior, someone she has to support. It's only when she realizes that it's okay to not have just one person you love but multiple that Rurino is finally able to see Hime as a member rather than just a junior. It's a short arc, but it really shows the unique situations the second years are in now and that they're fully fledged seniors. Her battery is still a thing though, as she does shut down at certain points because of her actions. There are some things you can't change. Regarding the third years during the 104th term, the fact they're able to do what Sachi wasn't able to do regularly is honestly the biggest amount of growth to point out. This time, they're not only able to mentor their juniors, but juniors, and it creates some of the best family moments if I were to call them that. Kozue and Ginko get the bond via their passion for the past, and since they're both, well, mature, they can communicate formally without a certain orange-haired goal appearing. Tsuziri gets to have Kosuzu as a little daughter that contrasts heavily with her lack of confidence, so it gives her some inspiration that if even Kachimachi can keep doing things, she can do the same. And Megumi gets forced to play Valorant. A lot of their growth comes from an undeniable fact that lingers on at the start of the term: graduation. At the end of March, their journey as school idols will end, and it's up to them individually to choose what they want to do. The next part of their life will begin, and they'll have to leave behind everything they built for the next school idols. But some have more difficulty than others dealing with that reality. I've talked about Tsuziri's preservation of the past, but it's most highlighted here when she realizes that everything is coming to an end. Tsuziri doesn't want to feel alone, but the feeling of graduation comes closer and closer to ending everything. She has a status quo, and she's scared of change. She'd rather everything be the same than risk doing something new. The community she's been a part of that has allowed her to feel comfortable is about to disappear, and she wants to keep it. Tsuziri is very emotional and sentimental towards everything, which is why I relate heavily to her. When she notices Kozue and Megumi's smell has disappeared from her room, she gets sad about it. When she realizes Sayaka isn't next to her, it's something that genuinely hits her. She wants to preserve everything no matter how selfish. A chicken that's been chilling in the school auto club room? Keep it there. There's no reason to move it. There's a sense of desperation how much she wants things to stay the same. Similar to Ginko, she wants to preserve the past, but for Tsuziri it's more so the present. Sayaka's the one who has to break the news to Tsuziri, telling her that things won't always be the same. It leads to Sayaka asking Tsuziri what she would do if Sayaka died tomorrow, with Tsuziri reaffirming that just means they should spend every moment together to prevent that. It's incredibly selfish on Tsuziri's end, but with how much she's been abandoned and never had a place to fully settle in, it's not surprising on how much she wants to conserve it. Also off topic, but Kosuzu being in the middle of the argument just makes it seem like she's a divorced child, and that's slightly funny. I love Tsuziri, and I especially love how she goes about how to process this. Her idea of being a school idol has always retained the idea of doing something together, being a group. When the time comes for that to end, she feels that losing the status of a school idol means losing that group. But she's proved otherwise by all the people around her. Learning to form your happiness around yourself instead of other people is always such a difficult task, and I love that at the end of it, Tsuziri begins to be able to not rely so heavily on the school idol label in order for her to find her place. She's Tsuzuri Yugiri, and it doesn't matter if she's a school idol or not, she'll always be loved and have a place. It's revealed later after that she wants to be a teacher when she graduates, which just fits so perfectly for a character, and I'm glad she chose that path. Someone who loves bonding with and helping people, choosing to be someone who can do that is so good. My friend Alex goes a bit deeper into the meaning of a school idol in one of his tweets, so go read that if you're interested. He uses the metaphor of a birdcage for Tsuziri, which is actually shown in a ton of the Dulchester MVs, so his interpretations might have more value than mine. On to Megumi, her selfishness and selflessness really shines when she's given the decision what she wants to do after graduation. After figuring out about her mother's sacrifices to ensure Megumi's future as an actress, she immediately backtracks on everything she's done to take back her mother's actions. Her mother gave up her dream to ensure Megumi could achieve hers, and it's here where her inconsistent nature shines the most. We expect her to be selfish because she's done it multiple times for her dream, but it's when it comes to the sake of others that her resolve is tested because she genuinely cares for people. She's stepping on other people's dreams to achieve her own, so does that make it right? She learns from Kozue not to step over other people's dreams, but to shoulder them and bring them with her. People sacrificed their dreams for her, entrusted her with them, and so she decides to utilize it to the max. She officially decides to study overseas to become a better performer, because if she's carrying all the dreams of others, then she better not make anyone regret doing so. And for Kozue, well, we'll get to her later. The most interesting thing that I've really enjoyed watching about the 104th term is how the first years interact. This is not a situation in which their seniors are cluttered and they have to do a Scooby-Doo, nor is it a situation where they all have conflicts with each other and break up because of it. They're in a very unique situation where they can just bond with each other, and I love how frequent the story points it out. When we get an episode that focuses on the first year's bonding, it starts with flashbacks to the third years when they were in their first year, and how much they did not vibe with each other at all. It creates a very clear comparison and shows how the future generations of school idols are doing way better than the last. They're able to be both mentored by their seniors and upper seniors in a way that wasn't possible back then. They still have issues regarding communication, but they overcome it in a rather easy fashion compared to how the third years did. Okay, now we have to unfortunately get back to the plot because this is when the next yearly Love Live tournament begins. Now this is incredibly recent, only being a few months ago, so major spoilers are ahead, but if you're already watching the video, in episode 7, an open campus event is held once again at Hasunosora. The first years use this as a chance to get closer to each other, with an unknown figure named Izumi helping them do so. Along with that, Kaho brings her childhood friend Sek-chan over to explore the school as the two were hospital buddies growing up. Wait, did I say that she was hospitalized? At the end of the episode, it's soon revealed that Izumi and Sek-chan know each other, as they too are school idols participating in Love Live, with Sek-chan's real name being revealed as Ceres. And these two, I'm actually not going to talk about them. Let me paint a picture here. Like Sachi, these two only get presence in the later half in the series. They appear in episode 7 and only begin to get meaningful development in 10 and 11. That is not a lot of time. A big part of Hasunosora is seeing these characters grow in real time, and at the risk of saying anything that might be outdated or negative, I'm going to hold back my thoughts. I knew going into this video that things were going to be outdated immediately, but for most of the characters, they've had time to marinate and be fleshed out. There is still development waiting for them, but I think they're fine the way they are right now. These two are side characters. I have an itching feeling that they're going to be important later on. They're definitely not getting dropped after the new term starts, so I'm not going to say anything. This is one of the few times I'm going to ask you to watch the show because I'm not doing all that. What I am doing though is going over how Izumi and Ceres affect the cast of Hasunosora because something interesting happens during the Love Live tournament. When the results of the regionals are given, it's revealed that Hasunosora and Izumi have tied with another round taking place. However, it's soon revealed that Izumi will be disqualified from the tournament as the school she attends, Mizukawa, is set to shut down. Ceres, who had planned to attend Mizukawa next year because she's a middle schooler, I've got to mention that, reveals that if Izumi hadn't won Love Live, then the school would shut down, and this tie pretty much guaranteed their death. Technically, this gives Hasunosora the dub, as the opposing party doesn't exist anymore. But is it alright for them to win like this? After some time, they all collectively make the decision. Nah, this isn't how it's gonna end. By spreading the word of Mizukawa across the country, they're able to have Love Life make an exception for Izumi and Ceres perform for the nationals. In a shocking but not so shocking twist, Hasunosora wins and is crowned the winner of Love Life. Everyone is excited about this win, but there's one character who has a lot to feel regarding this win, and it's Kozue. Kozue's lifelong dream has been achieved, and it's something to celebrate as she barely made it in the nick of time. She was given a choice during the Love Life. Victory was easily in her hands, and she could have just easily accepted the victory and took the dub. If it was her back in her first year, she might have actually taken the victory, but it's here where she shows the most growth by allowing a fair chance to her competitors. I'm kinda sad not much focus was put on her during Love Life, but she does get a lot of attention after they win. In her final year, she was able to win Love Life, and as a farewell message, she decided to compose one last song that she'll be able to pass down to her members. One problem though, she suddenly can't compose anymore. After Love Life, she has completely lost all her composing skills, and initially, she chalks it up to burnout. Everyone has that once in a while, even me, that's why I'm quitting YouTube after this video. But Kozue makes a devastating realization to why she's unable to compose anymore, and it's because of Love Life. Her entire lifelong goal was Love Life. Every moment since then was dedicated towards her dream of becoming a school idol. Dancing, performing, composing, all of it was for that. Now that it's done, what do you even do after that? Your entire motivation is gone. Being real, this used to be me with videos. I used to make make it a big deal, a lifelong goal to make this video or that video, and back then when I finished it, I felt a sense of euphoria, but also a sense of being lost in the fog. I treated these videos like big ideas, and all it did was leave me empty after the fact, wondering what to do now. It's the reason why I try not to make things a big deal anymore and act like something's my magnum opus, because I know what that does to you mentally. Video ideas that I hyped up in my head for years released, and that was the end of it. It didn't mean that they were any less important to me, but it was a matter of just moving on to the next goal. Tsuziri, Kaho, and Ginko are the ones to show Kozue that you can still have dreams even after accomplishing them. Kozue is the only one who's been focused on just one dream, so having reality hit that she can have another dream, another love life she can set her sights on, it's mesmerizing to her. Oh my god, I can have another dream after finishing it? What a surprise! The reason it stings with Kozue is the fact the one dream she worked for, love life, took so many years. There was so much pain and conflict in those years before that dream came true, and to start it all over again, isn't that scary? But she's reminded that just like with her dream of being a school idol, she won't be alone in their journey. All it takes is wanting to achieve that dream, just like her dream of wanting to be a school idol all those years back. Tsuzuri teacher. That's all I wanted to say. And here we are at the final chapter. Now, this episode literally came out almost a day ago, so there aren't any proper English subs, but I do know what happens essentially. Firstly, the mood is a lot happier than it was in the 103rd term. There were regrets that need to be resolved before the year ended, but here they're allowed to just reminisce. A majority of the episode is taking pictures to remember the seniors by and creating a scrapbook for it. But as Kaho reaches the last pages, a part of her doesn't want to end. Her desire for everyone to stay together makes her break the rules of what a school idol is, questioning if they're still able to do lives in concert with them even after they graduate. After some time accepting reality, Kaho decides to write a little note in the scrapbook, stating something along the lines of, "When we're all together," implying this isn't the end of the 102nd students. Now the way this episode plays out is interesting, as it leaves the fate of the 102nd students not fully closed. In other situations such as Muse or Aqua, the group either disbanded or continued, but their story was essentially over. It's only in recent times that Love Life has allowed time to pass by while still following these characters, with Leela and especially Hasunosora now. Hasunosora's case is interesting because of how the real life reactions were. Since the series was real time, the graduation of the 102nd students brought forth the idea that the Seiyus were also going to be graduated. And while we still don't, know what happened, because I'm uploading before to confirm, it is clear that their story isn't over and that while time will still pass by, their presence will still be felt. Just like real life, they're going to be doing their own things, but we just won't be able to see it for the time being. I've always had respect for Hasunosora's immersion with its real-time aspects. It's the reason why I made a whole video on it, but when it comes to the story especially, I like the natural stakes it raises. It doesn't time freeze to allow the members to continue performing, and it really puts a time limit on the time you can spend with them. With this video, I hope you gain an understanding of how much this time limit has both tightened these characters, but also freed them with how much depth you can dive into with them. Fly high, Tsuziri, Kozue, and Megumi. I'm too tired for this. I'm done. I don't even have time for a proper outro. I'm gonna go sleep. You guys don't ever see me again. Say hello to the order. And yeah, bye.